from your... Welcome back. So would anyone like to share on revelations that you had, insights? Anybody welcome to share on anything that arose for you in that process? Yeah, Hecky.
Please, can I go? It is done. So, other privilege. So, we discussed, where's my teammate now? Bridget, there you are. Bridget and I we were the group or our group was only consists of two of us. So we were just, having great chats about using the Enneagram in congruence. And on an individual level, we said it's important that in order to get to a point of congruence, we need to know each other, or know ourselves rather, sorry, individual level, know ourselves. And obviously the Enneagram assists us with that. But then also very importantly, we need to, with that, accept ourselves as a point of departure. And then more on a with others, congruence also as far as team members are concerned. We said in order to have congruence, it's critical that we have psychological safety. And that also in order to get that congruence, it's important that we do become vulnerable. So maybe just the highlights of our discussion. Ingrid, did we understand the brief correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
for sure.
Yeah, I'll just quote briefly
Yeah.
an example of a senior leader that I engaged with in June, where I asked them to give each other feedback, to look each other in the eye and to connect, give each other feedback around what do I appreciate about you, as far as my fellow team member, being my fellow team member, and then also what would I like you to work on more. And his whole team basically told him that they don't think, individually now, they don't think that he trusts him because he micromanages them. And he burst into tears when it was his turn because he said, and I asked him to go last, and he said that's not his intent. He does not want them to feel that he's not involved or he doesn't care. And totally different perceptions break through in order to get to that point of being more congruent or more aligned.
Wow, thank you.
So I don't know if you want
Thanks
to add
for
anything,
that.
Bridget. Did I miss anything? Happy? Cool, thanks.
I'd like to explore, if you don't mind, accept ourselves. And maybe, Bridget, you can unmute there as well and get some blend of how accept ourselves is part of congruence.
We were talking about our Enneagram numbers, right? So I'm a social 2 with a lot of 1 in me. And if you have the inner critic always saying things, you can't be in harmony with yourself. You really must stop and first accept the imperfection, accept, that we all make mistakes. And starting with that self-acceptance of really the good and the bad. Renata and I talked about the polarity training that we did, right? And it has to be both. And then that allows the individual, right? And this is inward reflection too, to be in harmony with themselves before they try to be in harmony with somebody else.
Thank you for that. I love that. And
I'm
the reason I'm
cross.
asking...
Sorry, Ingrid. Sorry.
Yeah?
I'm a self-preserving one, just to add to what Bridget said. And that's why we spoke about the oneness of the whip and accepting yourself with all your warts and all flaws, etc. And it can be a challenge.
Yeah.
Sorry to chip in.
No, it's fine. And it is a challenge for all of us. All of us have a super ego And then we meet the Enneagram, and our superego gets weaponized with this great new system that tells us how we should be and our vices and our virtues. And sometimes we use the Enneagram on ourselves in that way, and it doesn't really help us accept ourselves at first until we learn it a bit better. But that accepting ourselves stood out for me because one of the things that Petra was saying the other day is that congruence is picked up by other people when there's no contradiction between their body language and what they're saying, for example. And if we've accepted ourselves, then we're not trying to hide, we're not trying to mask our flaws, we're able to be there authentically. And because of that acceptance and integration of our shadow, then people can see that we haven't got a hidden agenda. We're not trying to hide. We're not trying to look good. You know, the hidden agenda is, you know, applause or whatever it is. So, Petra, I wonder if you could just expand on that from a nervous system perspective. I found it very, very insightful, and I want to bring it into this work.
Yeah, I mean, it's always helpful with the nervous system to go back to the origin of that and to look at the animal world. And we were speaking a little bit about, I was speaking about horses, but actually all animals, all human animals as well. When you think about what it means when something or someone is not congruent, that means danger. And so in the example of the horses, wild horses or wild animals, if there's incongruence, that means there's a threat. So it's really important, like if there's a herd, that there is congruence, right? Like horses don't pretend to be one thing, but secretly they're doing something else. That would be very dangerous to the safety of the whole herd. And it's the same with each individual animal and with each individual human. So, and we were speaking a little bit about this in our breakout group as well, that, you know, in order to trust to bring ourselves fully to an encounter, we need to first feel that the others are safe for us to reveal that part of ourselves that might be vulnerable, or that might be, you know, that might be us in our congruence, really standing in our values. We also need to feel that there is some congruence on the other side. Because our nervous system, and this is what you were just saying, Ingrid, you know, the body language and the words being congruent, but our nervous system works at a much subtler level. So our nervous system does this thing called neuroception. So it's constantly like a radar scanning our interior, our internal sensations, our interoception, the space between me and another person, and the bigger environment for cues of safety and cues of danger. And so our nervous system is very finely tuned when it comes to other people to pick up on these little signs of incongruence, which are signs of a threat, that have to do with very minute movements of the eyes, very minute changes in voice, very minute movements, particularly in the head and neck area, and of course also the overall feeling of, are things aligned between what I'm saying, what I'm doing, how I'm holding myself, what the volume and what the timbre of my voice is. So the vagus nerve is very much linked to a lot of those facial expressions that give away, is something congruent, is something incongruent, is something safe, is something a threat. And we don't think about that consciously, thankfully. I mean, imagine we had to keep track of all these things all the time, but our system picks up on it. And then we get that, so often that gut feeling of like, that person I'm not sure about, or this situation doesn't feel quite right to me. Let me step back, right? We all know that. That is our nervous system telling us something is incongruent in this. The situation isn't quite as it seems, or the person isn't quite what they're pretending to be. And in our little breakout group, we were talking about, you know, how it's this kind of loop between, I can only be congruent if I trust other people, but they might not trust me if I'm not congruent. So when I am congruent, I'm giving other people the permission to also step more into their congruence and show up more fully with all that's there.
Thank you for that. So if we're waiting to be congruent only when we're safe because of another person's congruence, then we're very other-oriented. But if we feel deeply congruent and we show up that way, we're offering an invitation for the other person to be authentic and congruent.
And that's
So
where it
the
goes
link-
back to that acceptance part, right? Like acceptance also in the sense of not just liking that part or not just including that part, but also having that courage to be fully ourselves.
Yes. Yes, the line from 3 to 6 is the courage to be and authentic. And yeah, I love it. I find it a very, very powerful thing to just dwell on for a bit. And it links so beautifully to the Enneagram, because the Enneagram is always talking about the false personality versus essence and presence. And we think of false personality often only on the inside. But when we're in false personality, we're not congruent, because the false personality has an agenda. It has an agenda that often is at someone else's expense in some way or another. So if you want to get your own way, my way or the highway as an 8, you have to intimidate people. You're not necessarily thinking, I'm going to intimidate them, but you unconsciously will enact intimidation and cause other people anxiety, stress, fear. And generally our Enneagram strategy does not feel good for other people. It is incongruent, no matter what they say. Like I had an Enneagram 8 client who used to say, my door's open, come and talk to me anytime. And not one person did, because they were terrified out of their wits that if they went in there, they were going to be slammed. So an Enneagram 9, they say, yes, I'll do it. Absolutely, I'll do it. And then they don't do it. So you lose faith in them. An Enneagram 1, if they're self-pres and social and not sexual, they can be passive-aggressive, and you can feel it from across the house. So they say, no, everything's fine. But you can feel in their body language the anger and that it's not fine and that they're stiff and they're walking around with a stiff face. So you can go around the Enneagram and think about how incongruity feels when you're with someone in their type. Like if a 2 is flattering you, you can feel something's off here. What do you want? Why did you break into my house and fix my washing machine? This is strange. Or a 3, you know, there's Sandra Matry talking about 3s feel slick, but they evoke mistrust. Just like something's not real here. And we can go around all of the types to see the incongruity, and it arises from the ego. So I'm seeing self-experience and congruity and healing as all interconnected, and that self-acceptance, safety, and our nervous system state is a huge part of a difference in self-experience. So I wanted to take you through some of the ideas related to this and look at trauma and the influence of trauma on things like congruence. It's not the only thing, but it's one of the key things that as we heal, we become more congruent. Daniel Siegel speaks about coherence, but for some reason I prefer the word congruence, and I don't know if I could really tell you the difference in meaning, but for me, it's a sense of inner density where everything is connected and there's some kind of sense of substance about it. So it's a coming together. And there is a picture in some Enneagram literature I'm looking at the moment where there are three triangles. Three circles. Let me just draw them very quickly. It's the head, the heart, and the gut. And when we are becoming real and when we are doing the inner work, the arrows from these things point inwards. So it's arrows inward can be our kind of little mantra for the inner work. Because when we are in our ego, it is very outward oriented because we are trying to get a reaction. We're trying to do something in the world. And even for the withdrawn types, they are trying to cope with the world by doing that strategy. When we are drawing our energy inwards, we're actually processing our energy. We're letting life touch us. We're noticing what's going on with us. And we're bringing our experience into this inner home. We're transmuting it. And from that place of working with what's going on with us, of working with our feelings, our sensations, we're able to build up an inner body that's much stronger. Gurdjieff calls it the Keshan body. He's got these interesting neologisms for the parts of us that are, like a spiritual body almost, he's talking about. So the aim in the Enneagram is to gather and gather. And when we are in a trauma response or when we dysregulated, our energy is kind of leaking out and it's not coming into coherence and congruence. So I wanted to just add that bit. So then, and I just want to thank you, Bridget and Heki, for bringing that piece in. I appreciate it. And that there's acceptance involved in it. And I think we'll come back to that. But what I want to do now is just talk a little bit about the early childhood formation of self-experience. And we'll elaborate more on what self-experience is. So the Enneagram language for the kinds of things that happen in childhood that impact our self-experience are what Almas calls basic holding. So a sense that reality has got us. That reality has got us and we're okay. So when we have basic holding inadequacies, we internalize those as the world's not safe, I'm not held. There are things called family holes. In all families, there's a family hole. So for example, Tom Condon says that sometimes in an Enneagram 1 family, there's a competence gap, like a competency hole. And the Enneagram 1 has to fill that in. Or say in the Enneagram 4 family, there's a deficit in an appreciation of each person's specialness and uniqueness. There's a lack of sensitivity in the family, and 4s can fill that hole. So in each family, we kind of try to compensate for some of the holes that we feel there. And I'm getting this from Faisal Muqaddam. It might not be exactly the same way as Almas says it, but Faisal Muqaddam speaks of, say, the Enneagram 2 arrives in a family where there's a deficit in what he calls golden love. And golden love is this absolutely unconditional, beautiful love that everyone is just bathed in. And it's so unconditional. It's so generous. And one can feel really that it comes from the holy origin down the line at point 4. So it's deeply grounded, it's free, and it flows out. So when you're missing that in a household, and 2s have a sensitivity to that, there's an inadequacy that they're then trying to compensate for. Then there's the childhood messages, which are the lost childhood messages, and the unconscious childhood messages, and then various family patterns. For example, how disagreements are handled in a family, whether there's shouting and bullying or whether there's no conflict, everything's swept under the carpet. So this is the Enneagram language for what goes on. And Alma says it leads to inadequacies in our particular self-identity structure. That's the language he uses. And you see often people use the language of structure in the Enneagram, ego structure, personality structure. Then in the trauma language and my trauma training, we speak about deficiencies in the holding environment. We talk about adverse childhood experiences, including household dysfunction. We speak about big T event trauma and small t traumas, which are, you might be shouted at for dropping a bowl and breaking it. And then the way that you handled and the punishment that's meted out and a parent saying something really awful. It's not a big T event, but in that moment it gets internalized as worthlessness or fear. And sometimes a protective part jumps in that moment. And then you have a protector that is shaming as an inner part. And then we're talking about complex trauma as well, CPTSD, which is chronic relational trauma, where 25 times a day, the child is trying to get attention and the parent is completely misattuned, whether they are watching TV or cooking or looking at their phone or just too tired to engage. And the child feels like they're invisible, they're not getting any emotional reciprocity or attunement, and that causes deficits. It causes pain, it causes feelings of rejection, inadequacy, invisibility, unwantedness, rejection. So if you go around the Enneagram, every single Enneagram type has core wounds, basic fears, lost childhood messages. So the extent of the trauma, it can be very, very severe adverse childhood experiences in an 8, or it can be fairly mild everyday trauma that pretty much everyone would have, but the structure still comes out as 8 because of the theme and the flavor of what that person needed to deal with. Somehow they got the message, toughen up. So they don't have to have huge 8 armor as an adult, but they're going to have some 8 armor. So the way that I frame this here is not that it leads to inadequacies in an identity structure. I'm saying it leads to negative self-experiences, an experience of the self with reactive defensive strategies. So what you can see here is that I'm just moving away from the language of structure into the language of process, because it's an unfolding process of how we do our type. So if you look at these self-experience versus identity structure, the one thing, and I'll go there first, is that a structure sounds like an object. It's objectified as a thing, it's a noun. There's this type structure and you've got it and it's inside you, and maybe we can hammer it and fix it and soften it here and there, but it's still seen as structural. And other than maybe distributed networks in our brain and some trauma pathways in our nervous system, I don't really see structures in our minds and bodies. So just want to get away from object, our ego being an object. It's always dynamic, changing, and evolving. Our self-experience is very multidimensional. I'll tell you more about what that means in a minute. And our self-experience has a capacity for integration into a new sense of me. So maybe I experienced myself as a me, my self-experience 10 years ago was very fragmented, with a lot of anxiety, fast-paced, dysregulation, inner disorganization, all over the place, compulsive behaviors. And if I think of a a picture of that, it would be almost like broken glass and a high-speed hurricane running through it, and very, very fast and quite chaotic. So as our self-experience changes, it becomes more organized, and you'll see some of the features of that. So I'm going to go into the multidimensional pieces of self-experience in a minute. I just want to give you a little bit more of a sense of the kinds of traumas and the effects of the trauma. And I break them down into the gut center, the head center, and the heart center. Petra, your hand's up. You want to say anything here?
Yeah, I just wanted to, maybe if you go back to the previous slide where you had the
This one.
yes, because we were talking there about the different kinds of trauma, and I was really thinking about the course that we were both watching on Friday, and how important it is to also think about the systemic trauma and how that impacts and shapes our self-experience, and how that also impacts and shapes our ability to be congruent in different contexts. So
Yes.
we think of racism, we think of sexism, we think of transphobia and all sorts of other things. From before we're born, how being in that environment, and how our parents being in particular environments shapes who we are and how we see ourselves, and how we sometimes have to define ourselves and express ourselves differently in different contexts, how that affects our ability to be congruent, or to even know what congruence feels like. And I'm thinking of the example in the course that we were doing, of a Black child having to learn very quickly in the US context, for example, a Black boy child, what it means to be out in the world when there's the possibility of being stopped by police and knowing that this might be your death. That you have to change yourself and be incongruent in a way to appeal to this other person to treat you like a human being. I think that's really relevant, because I think we often forget that. I mean, there are the big T and small t traumas, and then there's also the even bigger T traumas that we miss because they're so part of the water that we swim in.
Thank you for that. So if you're Black, you're going to have continuous microaggressions, and those might be small t trauma again and again and again, but in the context of a life. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I put some socio-historical things in one of the other slides, but that's really important to bring that in. Thank you for that. And then, as you say, it's going to be part of your experience, getting in a car and driving. Your self-experience there would be apprehensive, same as for a woman walking alone. No, men don't know what it's like for women to walk alone. I often walk in the park by myself, behind a man, with his dogs. And I think, I wonder how he's walking down this path, because I'm walking down it with a readiness for something to happen to me and a plan of, am I just going to say, okay, and give them my phone, or what am I going to do? So, yeah, these kinds of things, gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, all of those things come in.
And I'm also thinking about people who are second generation refugees, for example, and then this impossibility of being congruent either with the new environment or with the people's family of origin that you came from, because you don't fit in either context anymore. You're not fully this, you're not fully that, and how that self-experience is impacted by that. I'm thinking of the Linda Tai stories,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And people who are from privileged groups don't realize the self-experience of people on the other side in relation to them. Like, men don't know how women are experiencing them and themselves in relation to men, and how women's self-experience is different in the company of women. So those are the kinds of things it's really helpful to be conscientized about. But just going back to some of the Enneagram themes, and I'm definitely not saying there's a one-to-one relationship here, that you can only have these types of trauma if you're an 8, 9, or 1, or these if you're a 5, 6, and 7. I've clustered them in themes because the theme of the 8, 9, and 1 gut center is autonomy, and agency. Autonomy and agency. And I've put what are the kinds of trauma to agency and identity, and then what is the effect on your self-experience, and then what are the kinds of trauma to identity and image, because the 3 corner of the triangle is the image corner of the triangle. So your self-image is wounded in the 3 corner, and then the 5, 6, and 7, the 6 corner, is about what can I trust. So the 5, 6, and 7 are all about orientation and trust. So if you look at these types of trauma, the trauma to agency and autonomy, overriding agency and autonomy, violence and threats of violence, invalidation of will and preferences or spontaneous self-expression. You want to do something, you get shut down. Your parents say something that they want you to do, you say no, you get squashed, you fit in. And suppression of dissent, anger, or conflict, or there could be the competency vacuum, chaos and disorder. So you find some Enneagram 1s, for example, who grew up in a household where there was a competency vacuum, chaos and disorder, and you find Enneagram 1s who were micro-controlled and weren't allowed to express themselves spontaneously. They were rigidly disciplined and there was harsh punishment. So these are the kinds of wounds to agency and autonomy, and they lead to disconnecting from our agency in different ways or powering up, say in the case of 8. It's not true agency, it's a compulsive, armored up form of agency. So if you look at the distortions there, distorted autonomy strategy, and a sense of what existing and being valid means. So for 8s, an unhealthy 8, existing means taking charge and not being vulnerable at all. For a 9, being valid is going with the flow and blending, that false accommodation of 9. So that's their way of being valid, is to give up their autonomy. But at the same time, they're resisting and controlling by not doing what other people try and make them do. So it's that resistance by not doing as well. As many people know, 9s are incredibly stubborn. So that's their way of having control, is to be very stubborn. You can't drag a 9, even if they've agreed to what you wanted. It's not going to happen unless it comes from them and they've chosen it and it makes them feel alive and it's part of their authentic life force. And then disconnection from the subtle flow of life and the life force. And all 3 of the gut types are disconnected from the subtle flow of life and the true life force. Like 8s might look like they're connected with the life force, but it's a kind of pumped up version of the life force with, let's add some cortisol, adrenaline, and a suit of armor in a way. Whereas the life force, as it really is actually subtle and gentle and responsive and flowing. So 1s, 8s, and 9s are disconnected from that in different ways. 9s are disconnected from the vitality in the life force. And 1s are busy trying to order, structure, and inhibit the life force in a way that makes them feel secure. So the way these different kinds of trauma impact our way of being in ourselves, in our body, how am I enacting my personality, and how do I feel about myself while I'm doing that? And then if you look at the heart-centered traumas and the effects there on self-experience, you've got all of these different examples of interpersonal trauma: misattunement, abandonment, invalidation, gaslighting, mockery of feelings, shaming of feelings, like, oh, don't be ridiculous, go and wash your face. No, that's not right. Emotional neglect, conditional approval, isolation, banishment, invisibility, favoritism, where you have a golden child versus the other one is scapegoated or ignored. And then you find things like parentification and emotional incest, where a parent turns the child into her substitute partner because she's got a bad relationship with the parent, or vice versa. And then sometimes just parental hostility. The person doesn't have the bandwidth to look after the child, and they push them away. And these things come from our own wounds. You know, it could be addiction, it could be overwork, burnout, poverty, and all of these things are going to be amplified by structural and collective issues. Like, you can imagine a very poor person, a poor environment, they have to travel 4 hours and back to get to work. They're having a bad diet. They've got a terrible informal settlement shack surrounded by noise, and it's dangerous, and there's a lot of violence, and their nervous systems are on edge all the time. Maybe they witnessed a murder yesterday. How present can they be for their child? So this also, it's not an individualistic thing. We've got to appreciate all the contextual variables. So you end up with children with wounded self-worth, identity wounds, feeling shame, feeling I'm terrible at this, I'm no good at that, I'm not wanted. And there's the injury to their capacity for connection, because potentially every time they tried to connect or they tried to express themselves, they got shut down, or these other things happened to them. So their capacity for connection, they then shut down. It goes into exile sometimes. That vulnerable part is just like, no, it's not going to be here. It's too painful. And then feelings of shame, grief, and panic that come in here. So you can imagine if you're walking around with this inside you, it's not a structure. It's a lived, internalized sense. So, for example, if you've got wounded self-worth, you walk into a room, you see a whole lot of people, they're having a lovely time. If you've got wounded self-worth, you might be conscious about how you dress, that you don't fit in, that you don't really know anyone. Oh my God, all these people are, you're going to be having a whole story about what's going on there. And it's very difficult to be congruent when you're triggered like that, because it's like, oh dear, for me to be okay in this environment, I'm going to have to impress somebody. Sorry, I just need to plug my power supply in. Yeah, so just take a look and see, are there any that you recognize there that are part of your self-experience in different contexts? And I don't know if anybody would be brave enough to say, is there a word that jumps out at you there? Let's just look at the, oops, I'm on the wrong PowerPoint. It's back. And in the head center, before we share experiences, this loss of orientation, when you've got an authority figure who's unstable, untrustworthy, dangerous, unpredictable, or where the authority figures lack self-efficacy, self-mastery, emotional stability, or they might be absent, then you think, what's going on here? I can't trust these people. And, there's 3 different strategies to handling that. Is I'm just going to cut myself off. Emotions are not really useful. I'm compartmentalizing them off, and I'm going into my little individual world, and I'm doing what I need to do, but my emotions have been compartmentalized. That's the 5. For the 6, the strategy is hypervigilance. Like, I've got to keep an eye on what's going on here, because all hell could break loose in any minute. There's a bad mood. Maybe I can placate them. Maybe I can just be a very good girl and nothing bad will happen. Or maybe I should hide in my room. And how bad is it going to be? Is it going to be slamming the door, or is it going to be throwing a chair? If they've got a dangerous parent. So it's calculating what could happen and being hypervigilant. And then for the 7, it's having no idea what's going on, or where things are going, or what guidance is. Maybe there's no guidance in the family. Maybe there's a combination of no guidance plus other bad behavior, and there's no frame. Like, someone behaves badly, and then there's no containment to say, I'm sorry he behaved like that. That's really not good. What can I do to help you, make you feel better? So you don't have something that gives you any grounds for sense making. And so what happens when you have a loss of orientation in childhood, you might have very fixated or inflexible mental perspectives, and you can become very cynical, like you can't trust anyone. You might become dogmatic or rigid. You might be delusional. You might just think it doesn't matter, relativism, or you might feel lost. And in the case of 5s can get quite schizoid or disconnected from reality, because they struggle to cope with the unknown, with ambiguity and emergence. They take refuge in the world that they imagine in their head, and they don't actually know what's going on out there. I've seen it in avoidant relationships. The Enneagram 5 will imagine the relationship's fine, and they'll be going along thinking it's fine. Meantime, their partner's been crying every night for a year and can't take it anymore. They don't know. They literally don't know, because they've walled themselves off. So this is the effect on different types of trauma on these types of being. What does it feel like? And then the defensive strategies that play out within that. I want to just see let me just see if anyone's got any questions there, because there's quite a lot on this slide. Anyone want to reflect or ask a question or challenge? Totally up to you. Anything that jumps out.
I'll just say,
Yeah.
This is, I observe how this is a way that people in these 3 different centers judge each other. You know, I had an 8 friend who would listen to my Enneagram 3, probably from the wounded self-worth, things about saying things about myself, and she would just go, I review that. Like, that's not okay. Like, why on earth would you say things like that about yourself? Like, that's insane. Like, get over yourself. Like, that's like distaste. Like, ugh, that's so revolting that you would be saying those things about yourself. And then, I look at her anger stuff and I'm like, what is that? I just don't relate. And the autonomy stuff. And then, I see even in my 7 daughter, the fear is sometimes more difficult to see, but I'm like, You know, why is it so important that I lock my doors? Like, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
My sliding doors open,
Yeah.
the front door's not locked, and like she'll like lock it. And I'm like, well, what's the big deal about safety, you know? So
Yeah.
just judge and not get each other based on these things.
Yes. Exactly. We don't get each other sometimes at quite a fundamental level because the core driver is so different. Like I was friends with the 4, and she was saying, why anxiety? And I was saying, why shame? It was the same kind of dynamic. And I know I do that to people. I did it to someone the other day, saying, your self-doubt is irrelevant. Just do it. Because how can you let your shame get in the way? That's ridiculous. You know?
Yeah.
So I relate to that 8 person. So like, get over it, you know? Yeah, that's fascinating. And to live inside it, people don't understand. Like the fact that I had an almost panic attack today because of reading Gurdjieff, like it was a very unpleasant experience. I'm reading this book and I'm not able to make sense of his diagrams. And I mean, for God's sakes, somebody help me. But he's got all these fancy ratios, and then he's got this diagram here, which is supposedly the law of 7 and how it works. And I'm looking at this thing and I just start thinking, if I need this to be my orientation to tell me how to reach enlightenment and to grow on my psychospiritual journey, I'm screwed. So there's this piece of information that's apparently important. And now my orientation is messed up. And it causes genuine anxiety. Like reality is at stake here. Yeah. This is not, it's not just some idiot. I don't need to read that book. It's like I've got to, everything's got to fit together. Help.
That need for
So,
certainty, just thinking about agency,
that's,
bonding.
yeah. I need certainty. So yes, I read Christianity, Sufism, Buddhism. I read all these books, but I'm pulling together a sense of certainty. Then I find something that's messing up my head, and it's very stressful. So yeah, and Yelena, let's bring you in.
I just wanted to comment on Gurdjieff. I'm part of a 4th way group, and I understand it's very complicated, very complex stuff. So just saying that I sympathize, that there is so many, you know, he talked about different worlds, about what we need to do to create a higher emotional, higher mental bodies, and it's very complicated. So I just want to say that I've read and I'm confused too, so I'm on the same page.
That's great. So in solidarity, we can still be human beings and grow and connect with our heart center without him. That's what I say. So I want to introduce something that just before we go on to the feeling that the experience is about, in each center, self-experience takes these different forms. And in the mental center, we're going to have ways of observing, ways of seeing the world, ways of making meaning of our life based on our socio-historical location. So we're making sense of ourselves using the Enneagram, and maybe we use attachment theory and all kinds of different theories. But we've got so many inputs that define how we make sense of ourselves as one aspect of our self-experience. And that's really important. Our self-experience and how we interpret ourselves is infused with all kinds of systems. Some of you might have done human design, astrology, the Enneagram, attachment theory. So we're taking all these ideas in, and they filter into our way of experiencing ourselves. If we've learned polyvagal theory, then we're going to be noticing our nervous system. So it changes our self-experience. So none of the things that we absorb are neutral in terms of forming a sense of ourselves. And the Enneagram is a big one. If we're working with the Enneagram, it's going to change our way of seeing ourselves. Like if you were to take yourself out of here and plant yourself in Buddhism, I did that. And I said, how do you see the cultivation of the inner witness? Which is a crucial Enneagram question. So he says, no, that it reifies an inner split, and we don't want an inner split. And if you start thinking about an inner witness, it's a form of confabulation. So if you follow that path, you're going to have a different way of walking around in the world, a different way of being in your own skin. If you're in the Enneagram, you're encouraged to have this Platonic idea of the self, ego, essence, holy ideas, virtues. We've internalized that. And then we've got in the body, we've got instinctual drives, senses, information processing. There are all these variables that are part of our self-experience. And we're embedded in the natural world and interconnected on the planetary level. And we're social animals, and we're emotionally connected. We're relationally connected. One person says we mirror each other into being. So just at the pure animal level, the connection, and we learn socially. So socially is where we internalize ideas about ourselves. So right now we're sitting together. It's a social context. We're using language. We're part of an Enneagram community. And I'm sharing concepts that some of you are going to internalize. And maybe you're going to walk differently tomorrow. Maybe your posture is going to be slightly different because of what you've taken away. So just really wanting you to see that self-experience is quite a complex thing, influenced by the Enneagram and described by the Enneagram. And when we have a lack of holding, the Enneagram and the Alma's teaching say that we experience a loss of contact with being itself. So we lose contact with existing in the here and now, with our sense of being substance. You could call it me-ness at the deepest level. We have a loss of basic trust, and that would be the holy ideas of pre-verbal confidence in reality. And then we develop distrustful reactions. So those are part of our self-experience, or they're part of the things that lead to a certain experience. And in trauma language, loss of safety and connection, disconnection from the life force, and a loss of agency. And the way the Enneagram describes how these things turn into a specific difficulty is these words. So the first word in each is taken straight out of Alma's, and then I fished around a bit for more words because some of them I didn't like. But have a look at the one for your own type and see, does that resonate with you? I know that lost for me as a 7 hit me really hard. That describes how I walk around. So your household context, your trauma, your place in society, what you get exposed to, this is then your self-experience. And your ego, or your specific difficulty within your self-experience. So then obviously as we heal our trauma, our self-experience is going to shift. Just thinking as this is as the starting point. Yelena?
Yes, so just looking at 3, I'm just trying to make sense of that in my head. So the panicky, helpless angle, I can actually see with the 6 points and the 9 points, in the sense of my effort, doesn't really matter, it's not getting me anywhere. So I could understand the disintegration element.
Sorry, Yelena, I'm not getting your sound very well.
You can't hear me? Let me put up the volume. Sorry, I've just got headphones on.
Yeah, it's a little bit fuzzy.
This better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, I was just saying in terms of the type 3. So with the helpless and the panicky descriptions, I can see that happening where the 3 kind of moves to 6 and 9 and feels helpless in that their effort or whatever they're trying to do or apply is not really getting them anywhere, or panicky when they start getting into the mental headspace, evaluating the situation, for example. The desperate and the alone bit, I've got to think about that. I think there is a desperation of 3 when they are not really progressing and not really moving forward. Because I think there is this impetus in a 3 to move forward. Like that's just what it is. And alone, I'm linking that back to maybe the fact that all heart types are they're all going to be needing mirroring from other people. So 2, 3, and 4 in some way are going to need people to mirror something back to them in different ways.
Yeah.
So this is the way I would interpret what he's saying.
Yeah. I think that's right. The helpless piece is about I've got to do. Being is not enough. And there's a compensation for the helplessness in the doing. That's what Almas writes about a lot. So it's when you don't have a sense of holy will and holy harmony, and that you're part of a flow of reality, that you can trust your place in the flow of holy will and holy harmony at 3, then holy law, and holy harmony at 3, you are on your own. You've got to do it. You're not going to be carried. You've got to make it happen. Nobody's going to do it for you. And that's where the incessant doing comes from, is because if you stop doing, you're going to experience the helplessness. So that's how that was understood. I hope that clarifies a little bit.
Are you a 3, Yelena?
Yes, 3 wing 4, self-prosecute type.
Thank you for that. Does that land, Yelena?
Yes, and I think this links nicely to the congruence aspect that I was discussing with 2 people here in the group, Kelly, and I can't see you up there, sorry. I'm just trying to, is it Kerry? Sorry, I'm just trying to find the name. So Chris and Kelly, we were together. And we were talking about congruence, and I was explaining that I feel like I have a much better reading on a situation where things are out of balance or things are not in congruence. And the same thing happens in relation to other people. So when there is a disconnect, energetic disconnect, or something with me or whatever it is, I mean, I'm much more aware of that. And that's kind of like my experience, as opposed to the true congruence, as in what I would think is that the 3 centers are aligning. So for a 3, I think coming up to thinking about these words, borrowing some of these 6 traits and borrowing some of the 9 traits, and then all the centers align. I mean, I don't see this happening in me ever, so I don't know if other people have progressed to it somewhere. But there is a lot of, I think, in this particular situation describing the 3, you do have to kind of get some of the healthy 9 stuff, some of the healthy 6 stuff, and try to work on, if you believe in tri-type or just in general, opening up all these centers. And let's not even think about the crazy instinctual triggers and all the rest of that. So to get congruence in terms of the Enneagram terms, I think that's, well, for me personally, I think it's a very, very difficult task.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And it's interesting what you're saying about 3, because there I'm getting a sense the inner triangle types might have a slightly more blended definition of congruence. And for them to pull their energy inwards, like in this picture here, is more difficult because it's constantly going outwards and blending externally. But to bring that energy inwards and find out what is inner congruence, what is inner authenticity. And yeah, so that's what came up for me when you were talking. And also the fact that the definition Naranjo stresses for vanity in 3 is I tried in vain. It's like an over trying and trying and trying to get something that you can't get. I tried in vain. So that's a good way of understanding vanity, is that it's an attempt to establish something from a place of helplessness. And I see it with my clients when they feel like they're failing. Like if a client gets negative feedback from someone about their work, then it's like, oh my God, I've got to go on a new course. I've got to up my game. Maybe I should do something else. And even wanting to abandon their current project because maybe it's a has-been, or maybe it's not good enough. Now I have to do something else that's more worthwhile. So I think that's the kind of feeling quality that is raised there. Is that good? Cool. Anyone else want to comment on what they're seeing for their own type? Yeah, Jill.
I find it very useful to work with my tri-type. So I'm a 136. So as I'm reading that, it really just amplifies for me the stuff that I struggle with, and the words are really helpful. They're not great words, but they're helpful to identify sometimes where I'm feeling like I'm more into my 3, or I'm kind of feeling more into my 6, although I'm a main 1.
Yeah.
Working with my tri-type, although actually, like, I'm all of them, really. But I notice more particularly where the 3, the tri-type, the highest, my most used strategies are prevalent. Yeah.
So the things that you do in your life because of feeling wrong, helpless, or insecure would then be your inner experience that you then need to compensate for with your ego strategy.
Yes.
Can you give us a small example of, or 2 out of 10 of where feeling wrong, helpless, or insecure, the strategy was like, let's go, Enneagram 1?
I mean, if I think about my life stage at the moment, the last 2 or 3 months have felt a little bit like a plateau. And I'm always feeling no kind of passion for anything in particular, oddly, least of all work. So I'm having the anxiety of the 3, like I should be doing something. So I feel the inner critic. You should be doing something. You need to be doing something. And then I feel the sense of insecurity around my 6, like, oh my God, like I should be doing something. And then I panic more, but I still have this feeling like I don't really want to push myself. So my coping for all of that has really been to try and be with it, which sounds weird. I'm literally just observing it flow and trying not to do my reactive, forcing myself in a particular way, which would be my usual
Yes.
soldiering on thing. And I'm just kind of trying to be patient and see what emerges. I mean, at some point I will have to do something, but I'm trying to work with the fear, and I'm trying to work with the criticism, and also, you know, I suppose the wisdom of maybe this is just a reprieve, like this is an open space that's been offered, and like use it as that rather than panicking that nothing's happening, because otherwise then you don't rest and you don't actually enjoy the spaciousness of it. You just panic pants and, you know,
Yes.
feeling desperate and feeling
Yes.
critical of yourself because you're not doing more.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's a useful example, but that's kind of what's happening for me now. Yeah.
Cool. And in terms of Enneagram resources that you're using to not kind of collapse into the unhealthy ego patterns of wrong, helpless, and insecure, it sounds like the presence, the staying with, the knowing, and you've got the capacity to hold it.
Well, I think I have it's interesting that you spoke about structure earlier, but I have a time structure in terms of the day. So I'm quite disciplined about my exercise. I'm cooking, so which I haven't always done. I've bought ready-made food at home. So I've got this routine going of doing domestic things that feel lovely and safe. I'm not just kind of like lying on the bed, you know. I feel like I am, and I'm doing logistical stuff like getting the car licenses updated,
Okay.
you know, checking out the finances to see how the budget's looking, and you know, projecting costs for next year for the kids that are studying still, and looking at the policies. And so I feel I'm creating holding for myself. And yeah, and I'm also noticing my real allergic reaction to performativity. Like, I have had offers of work, but they didn't appeal to me, so I turned them down, which I have never done. I've always taken every single thing if I can. And so that's been a surprising thing to me. But there's just something in me that isn't congruent around the work offers.
Yeah, so it's congruency as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So, yeah, interesting. It's when we aren't doing our strategy and we're doing something else and something new and testing it out and seeing, sometimes there's a shame backlash, sometimes there's a wave of anxiety. But at the same time, Jill and I were speaking about this other day. Our old ego strategy feels like fool's gold. We know it doesn't work. At some point, we know our old ego strategy doesn't work. And so I do it. Rather just suffer consciously. And Gurdjieff was all about that. We can suffer unconsciously and then go and do our ego strategy, which doesn't work. Or we can suffer consciously and the ego strategy can loosen. Yeah, Anna, I'll take your point, and then I want to go back to Petra. I want to share one more thing and then go back to Petra for the practice.
I just have a question. I don't think there are any core 8s on the call, but if there are, like, I can kind of understand every other number, but I would love to know how, like, the guilty badness and the duality, that feels very 1 to me, and I don't understand how that operates in 8 when they're at lower levels.
So with 8, they think they're a bad person because they think the world is a tough and dangerous place and they've got to toughen up. They become a badass. And they know that as a badass, they've thrown something out, which is vulnerability, softness, kindness, gentleness. And there's a guilt for having thrown that out and disconnected from it. So there's a good and bad, and they've kind of chosen bad in a way. I've got 8 friends, and I challenge him on something. I say, holy crap. He says, I'm an 8, deal with it. Harsh positions on things, but actually behind the scenes of saying, grow up and deal with it, they actually feel guilty for being like that. And they feel guilty that soft goodness is so far away. And they also feel guilty for the ways they've hurt people by being the badass. So there is that inside. And when you get close to an 8, they will tell you they feel like a bad person. It's actually incredibly sad. But with their sensitivity and softness, they threw out the idea that they could be innocent and good. So that's got to be recovered. So yeah, I just wanted to say there, if I can move on, spend some time with these specific difficulties and consider, what is that like in my being? If I feel lost as a 7, what does that feel like? What does it feel like in my legs? What does it feel like in my breathing? So when I think about lost, I think about being a 3-year-old at the airport. I'm small. I don't know anybody. I'm disoriented. Everything's big and busy and I can't cope. And I'm tiny. I've got no self-efficacy. So there's a lot of anxiety and a sense that the world is too big. So that's my self-experience. Or if I feel lost as a 7, maybe I feel like a stray dog. I feel like a lost dog. No one knows where I am. I've got no food. I'm completely reliant on luck to survive. If I get injured, no one's going to take me to the vet. I'm starving. So take it and take that word and say, what does that feel like for me as my felt experience of being me? That's the invitation. And then healing is a complete change in that. I don't feel lost. I feel located. I can trust myself. I feel profoundly connected. And for me, it would be, say, 794. Getting over the sense of being unlovable, unimportant, inferior, invisibility cloak. No, actually, I'm serving something good. I trust the thing I'm serving and I'm going to serve it. And then the abandoned, estranged, cast out, alienated. Well, actually, in the community that I work in with my clients, we all feel a bit that way. It's very normal to feel abandoned and estranged and cast out and alienated at some level. And that comes into the work. So being able to heal to the sense that there's an integrated embodied feeling. And in the conventional kind of representation, self-experience is broken down into, are you coping? Maybe how do you love yourself? It's got these various metrics, self-talk, self-discovery. So it breaks it down. And I don't want to break it down like that. I want it to be an overall picture of self-experience where we're not thinking tick, 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 tick. Yes, my mental health is okay. Yes, my self-care is okay. That's an analytical pie. I'm thinking more, how is it in your own skin to be you? Are you feeling capable? Are you feeling fragmented? Are you feeling manic? Do you feel settled? So none of these pictures are particularly easeful, but they are very different. So the invitation is just to notice the meanness of you. Do you feel a sense of your innate dignity and nobility as a human being? Do you feel your ability in your heart center to be touched by life and to meet people with softness and receptivity? Do you feel your aliveness and power? And in the Last presentation I gave on self-experience, I spoke about this, becoming safely embodied. And I came across this wonderful sentence here, loving ourselves into coherence. And for me, loving ourselves means I love my existence. I love existing. I love the fact that I have a heart that feels. I love my life force. I love my sacred rage. I love love. I love the fact that I can love. I love having awareness. I love being able to learn. So it's not loving some idea of myself. It's loving being in this three-centered being, moving through this world and having this heart that can open. So I've put this here in the three centers, but a shift in self-experience is coming into a sense of density and realness, agency, aliveness, and being safely embodied in the here and now as we are together. Can you be in your body? Can you be in your true experience of your heart, staying with what's arising for you, no matter what it is? Being able to go inside and feel what's there. Being able to stay with yourself in a way that you do feel a sense of capacity, and that when you're triggered, you're able to take those experiences and hold them and become a safe home for yourself. I've got a nice little sticky note here that I love, and this inner work really helps us with this. I decide the shape of my psychic dwelling. So as we develop the capacity to integrate and grow and handle more of our experience, we're more and more able to decide on the shape of our inner life. We just have more and more capacity to do that. And out of that comes flexibility. We move from our stuck patterns of childhood where we feel small, where we feel incongruent. Like if we've got our big girl shoes on and we're in this big presentation and we've got to act tough and we're wearing a suit and we feel like we've got to look like a stock photo and show up and be slick and pro. Maybe on the inside we're feeling terrified, but we put on that image. When we heal our trauma, then we feel, I'm here, I'm doing the thing, I'm giving the conference presentation. My nervousness is a sign that I care. And here we are. Let's go. There's flexibility, adaptability, coherence. We're energized and we're stable. And the nervousness is something that we can integrate. We don't have to defend against it. So that's the healing of self-experience, is from either of these two to feeling like I am here in life, and that's okay. It's okay. But it doesn't come from forcing ourselves to smile and having a good umbrella. It comes from that inner sense, the experience of ourself as more whole and more integrated. So we've only got a few minutes left, but I'd really like it, Petra, if you could do a practice with us, and hopefully some of you can stay for a few minutes extra, to work with somatic practice to help us change and experience, or not necessarily change, to help us be in our self-experience and to discover more about it. So can I hand over to you, Petra?
Sure, you can. Do you want to take the presentation down so that we've just got ourselves again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The standing one.
Yes, I was just going to say, so we're going to stand up for this one if you can, if your body allows you to. If you've got any pains or any restrictions that mean that you can't, then please find the sitting or whatever other position that works for you. This is always optional, as I said earlier. but standing can really help us with this. And as Ingrid was just talking about our self-experience, I was just reminded that in terms of our nervous system, 80% of the information comes from the body up to the brain and only 20% goes the other way. So it's really good when we're dealing with this issue of coherence or any other issue that we do something physical to experience ourselves. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah. Yeah. Good. So again, nothing to get right or wrong, just you're getting what you're getting from this. I'm just going to invite you to find a comfortable position standing. And you can have your arms by your side. Your eyes can be open or closed. And just for a moment, allow yourself to drop into how it is to be here now at the end of this 2-hour session. To notice where your attention is in yourself. And as Ingrid gave us that title, how is it to be in your own skin right in this moment? So just we have a little baseline before we start the practice. You might even like to ask yourself, as you're standing here and you're aware of your body and your heart and your mind, is there anywhere where you feel slightly off center, out of balance? And just trust whatever response comes. It's not a thinking question, this is more of a feeling, sensing question. And then I'm going to ask you to just shift your weight from left to right, slowly. Notice how that feels as you're moving, as your balance is shifting from one side to the other. And to find that place where you feel you're in balance between those two sides. So you can take your time to let that slowly pendulate from left to right till you're finding a sense of centeredness between the two. And notice how you know that you found that. What is it that tells you, this is the center between left and right? And then let yourself move forward onto your toes and back into your heels in that same way of rocking, noticing the shift of the weight and how that impacts your whole sense of who you are and where you are. And again, letting yourself find that place where you are balanced evenly as feels right for you, between the front and the back of your feet. Noticing the physical sensation of how that feels to be balanced between the front and the back. What tells you that you're in your center there? And it doesn't mean that you're totally still. It might be that you feel that you still have a sense of rocking, that balance is actually more of a fluid place rather than a stiff or stuck place. And I'm going to ask you to become aware of the ground under your feet and the space above your head. And this might feel a little bit more difficult than the first two, but to feel yourself moving between the place of yielding your weight, giving your weight to gravity, connecting downwards, and lifting, being almost pulled up by this invisible string through the crown of your head, up towards the sky. The sense of lifting, growing, and just experimenting for a few moments with this, giving your weight downwards and this lifting up. Is it possible to find the balance between the two? Where you're neither collapsing down nor are you stretching beyond a sense of ease and relaxation upwards. Again, noticing what you notice in this place. And see if you can bring all of these 3 dimensions into your awareness together, the side to side, back to front, up and down. To find a center point between all of them. The way I like to think about it, it's almost like a star. And there is a point in the center of that star between these different lines. Notice what your sense of that life force that we were talking about earlier is in this place. To perhaps notice a sense of standing in yourself, inhabiting your own skin. What kind of sense of congruence within yourself you're experiencing right now? Noticing any physical sensations, tensions or spaciousness, tingling, warmth or coolness. Noticing if there's any particular impulses for movement that come in this place. And if your eyes are closed, I'll invite you to open them and to also see what it looks like to look out from this place. And you might want to again move your eyes and your head and to take in the space around you from this vantage point. And you don't have to be still. This can be a fluid being inhabiting that central place. And finally, I'm just going to ask you to find one word about this quality of being that you've arrived in. And there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no particular thing that we're looking for here. Just what it is like for you in this moment. And then from that place, just ask yourself what would be a good transition back into connection with the group, with the screen. What would make that easeful for you rather than abrupt? What do you need in order to come back to this little gathering in a good way? And offer it to yourself. So the question was not just a question. Let yourself follow that need, that want of a good transition.
Thank you so much, Petra. We're slightly over time. I'm comfortable to stay. I know Renata often has to jump off, so if you want to make me co-host, Renata, or keep me, I think I already am. Your dog often needs walking at this time, I know. But I'm happy to stay for a bit with anyone who can and wants to talk about our experiences and any more about this idea of self-experience. There are lots of other theoretical ideas about it, such as an existential gestalt or a self-context, as it's called in acceptance and commitment therapy. So I really place this at the foremost of my Enneagram coaching work, is whatever someone's goal is, the tacit goal, the goal beneath the goal, is that the person experience of themselves changes. And when it does, they really don't need to do their type very much, or not the unhealthy end of their type. When they're triggered, when things happen, that's not their go-to, the fool's gold, because they're experiencing themselves more differently. They've got more resources internally. There's more of that stability and flexibility. So those components actually being the core goal of the coaching, meta skills or meta qualities, flexibility, adaptability, coherence, energy, and stability. Because no matter what comes your way from there, you're going to be more equipped to make a wise choice. So that's where I want to round up what I want to say, but love to hear from you, your experiences. Jill, do you have to go? If you don't, you're welcome to jump in. You have to go. Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate them. Really, really happy.
I do.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Cha, those who need to go. I'm seeing some good comments here. Yeah. Very helpful.
Oh. Hey, this was mind-blowing for me.
Really? In what way?
Well, let's just say I went into it a little cavalier.
What, in terms of the specific difficulty? Like,
well,
never mind, we're going to plunge you into the existential horror.
Well, there's a type of body therapy called EGOSCU, EGOSQUE. And there's a book, it's called Pain Free. And it's exactly what we did. I went because I had tennis elbow. The therapist said, no, you don't. And he worked on everything but my arm, and it got better. In 2 sessions, he fixed my back. That's been a problem for 35 years. Right. And you had to stand exactly, and he would take a picture of you in front, sideways, and back, put it up and say, what do you see? Like your shoulders up and this and that. And from that, that's your basis. And then you work, you do, everything has to be bilateral, and it's a structural fix. Why bother with muscles and tendons if you don't have a firm foundation? And you know, it could be very minor, like I'm going like this, almost like isometrics. Here's the point. So I'm standing on my feet. We have to do front, back, balance, all that. And I'm thinking about it. And I'm like, okay, pull in, get out of your head. And what came up was an image of me in 6th grade. And I was at a pool party. And I had just started growing breasts. And my mother was miserable in the marriage. She was sick. Like, she didn't notice anything. So I wore a big shirt. But at that time, I was popular. And the kids picked me up and threw me in the pool. I was like, oh my God, I was so horrified. Because I you know, oh. Anyway, but the thing is, and I had a twin brother, and I thought, you know, if I was a boy, but I never not liked my body. And I'm realizing standing here, it was all about how I was going to be perceived, and it was going to be inaccurate. So standing here, like it all came together, and I just felt this grief. Instead of feeling empty, dark, or dirty, I've had that. It was, wow, I'm solid. I'm just sad. It was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Petra, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I mean, what came to me as you spoke about that last bit, that where you said it, you know, I didn't feel this and this and this, which I felt before. I felt something new, right? I felt empty.
Not
So
empty. No, I wasn't empty. I was full like 90%, and I couldn't get it right here. But then I realized I think it's grief. But hey, I'm open.
But then
Maybe.
when we finally come into actually being here, right? When we spend so much time not being here, then we feel the things that we've disconnected from and that we've not even been aware of that are there sometimes.
Yeah,
You know,
they're
the
frozen
leaving,
in time.
yeah, the leaving the body has been the strategy, the protective strategy away from the pain of the grief or the hurt or the. So it's really powerful when you say what happened in this short piece, like how much was connected to that in you. And I'm curious how it is now as you're speaking about it.
Well, I've got all this head energy, so I gotta let me think. Oh, this is key. Oh my God. The key to the Igasku and even this exercise, it didn't work until you let out your stomach. Or as I said to my teacher, I'm a woman who lets out their stomach, right? And you have to push and push. And it's just, you're like you're rewiring and you know, like the Buddha. And so once I did that in your exercise, that's when I came together. Yeah. But it's hard because you're like, okay, you're a little bit up, and then you slump and you feel fat or judge yourself fat, and you go, oh, this is healthy, this is attractive. But my waist did expand a little, but I don't care. Now I don't care.
What a powerful example of how our idea, I mean, this is what I was talking about earlier, how our environment shapes how we think we need to be, and how then physically our structure is shaped in a certain way, right? Like pulling in the stomach shapes us in a certain way, but how that then precludes certain experiences. We can only have this kind of experience, but we can't have those other experiences if we're standing like this with our stomach pulled in, right? Like you said, central to the therapy is that you can actually let your stomach relax. And then you can feel things that you couldn't feel while your stomach was pulled in and while you were putting yourself in that shape that you thought, or we all think, is expected. So there's
Yeah.
something about the congruence of when I am allowing myself to relax into my own skin just as it is, rather than how I'm expected to be in shape. And I'm doing, as I'm saying that, I'm allowing my own belly to come out, and I'm feeling that breath coming in. Then I can be something that is actually much more congruent with myself, and then I feel things that have been pushed aside.
Mm,
Mhm.
mm.
And the
And
strange thing is, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Nancy.
no, I've done yoga and done a million therapies, body therapies. I am a body therapist, but it was actively accepting the need to let your stomach go. I mean, it fixed a bad back, right? Because you're like this, right? You're tightened up. But I could override that in yoga and Tai Chi and whatever, because I don't know, maybe I wasn't ready or I didn't understand what that experience. I didn't understand that should be an experience. Yeah. I'm done.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Nancy. And I've also found with that exact exercise the other night, I self-pressed blind, discovered I'm tired, hungry, and cold. And then on top of that, the grief. I said this already, the grief of the self-abandonment, like the sadness as well. I also arrived at a sadness. And I'm wondering, Petra, if you were running a session, like an SE session, I've seen people do like a breathe around the sadness, bring some around alongsideness to the sadness, and how to hold that. What would be the next step if someone says, I'm feeling very sad?
The next step would be to ask, what does that sadness feel like in your body?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's
So
the
Nancy
physical sensation? Yeah.
Okay, so Nancy are now doing it. You got two clients at once.
It's almost like I got punched in the gut for life, like, and it didn't matter if my heart was happy. Underneath it, abandoned, estranged, cast out, alienated, lost. Because I'm a 478.
But I'm going to ask you just in this moment, without any of the theory
Oh,
that we
okay.
did, what does it feel like, that sadness, that grief in your stomach? You said it's like someone punched me in the gut. Is that how it feels right now?
The belly's loose. That's okay. More in near the ribs and the diaphragm. Let me think for a second. Oh, it's starting to tremble on the inside. I think. Yeah.
Anything else that you noticed there?
Like it's been trapped underground. Little bubbles.
Are they moving up, the bubbles, or where are they moving to?
Moving up and out, like just a little more space is being created.
Yeah. How big is that space that's being created?
Like little quarters here and there. Oh, I don't know if you know what quarters are.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. And that spaciousness, has that got a particular quality? Is it
Clear.
warm or cold?
It's clear water bubbles.
Clear water. Yeah.
You can see through it and it's shiny.
So maybe
But
just stay for a moment with that quality. Let your attention stay with that quality of that clear water. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And notice what happens as you give it some attention, that clear water, the spaciousness.
it gets a little shiny and it has a little bit of sun at the bottom.
Mm.
Like energy.
Energy.
Mhm.
And is there an emotional quality that comes with that? That awareness of this energy?
Excitement, this push to be in the world more.
And I saw you were making this gesture there with your hands. I wonder if you want to make that again just a bit more slowly.
This one? Okay.
Yeah, you were talking about this into the world.
Okay. Into the world. Yeah, like,
Mm.
okay, slowly.
Yeah. So you can really feel as you're making it, what happens in you as you were making this gesture? And there was that sentence that came with it, pushing into the world, I think.
Well, it's softer.
Mm.
The first is impulse. I just want to be out there.
Yeah.
And then this is actually more balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to ask you to maybe open your eyes and just continue to make that gesture, but to be aware that I'm here with you.
Yeah.
And there's also a few other people who could be, the world is here as you're making that gesture.
Here's what just happened. Okay, now I'm a little frightened.
Okay, take a moment.
It backed up.
Okay.
It's behind me now.
What's behind you?
The bubbles.
Bubbles. And how does it
Yeah.
feel to have them behind you?
Now that everybody's looking at me, really good.
Yeah. What does
Yeah.
really good feel like? Is it a physical sensation that really good? I mean, you're laughing, so I can see there's some
Yeah.
energy happening in your
Okay.
face. But
All right. Okay. I got scared and I feel a shadow. And this would be performance. So I don't want to do it anymore. And, I recognize there's a bridge that I have to go over to do this in real time, in a real way.
do you see that bridge there as you're talking about it?
Not really. It's more a concept.
Okay.
It's okay. I have the initial experience, and that's terrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm supposed to keep my eyes open. I'm sorry. Yeah. Wow. Do I
Just take a moment now to really feel what are you aware of right now in this moment now? As you've gone through these different experiences, what's happening right now in this present moment?
Well, I'm much more up in my head. Oh, my stomach just contracted, I realized. Okay. Yeah, it's a little vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just wondering, so there's vulnerability that's present. Is there something that you can do, something you can offer yourself to both acknowledge that vulnerability and bring in a little bit of safety and protection for that part?
For me, I can, yeah. It's my interior experience. But once you throw it out there, you lose. Yeah. Now it's a management issue.
Yeah. So can you just stay with the interior just for a moment before we move on? Because I'm also aware of time, but just so that we're landing in a place where you feel you can hold that vulnerability. There's no expectation from any of us that you need to be any different from how you are in this moment.
Yeah. I'm good. I know the feeling inside of me. It's not going to go away.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. 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 I'm just going to check how are your feet in this moment?
Firmly on the floor.
And are they warm or are they cold?
My feet run a little cold.
Mm. Mm. And anything else you notice about your feet?
I think they hurt a little. There's a little aching. Yeah.
I'm just going to invite you to press the feet into the ground gently, like one by one, like we did earlier, this kind of rhythm from side to side, but just sitting, just pressing the feet gently so you can really feel that contact with the ground, the place where the feet meet the earth. Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can see your attention is really in. I'm just going to ask you if you can find your own way slowly to just take in that we're here together. So finding whatever way feels good for you to be in this space with us again. You might take a moment or two to just go, oh yes, I was in this inner place, and here I am also in connection with some other people.
Yeah. Wow. That's next week. That's a lot.
But you're right here now. You are actually physically in a space with other people. I'm not asking you to relate to any of us in any specific way, but just to acknowledge the reality. You're there,
Yeah.
connected to your inner experience, and we're also all here together. Yeah.
You see, I'm going around my body. I gotta lower my shoulders. I gotta let go of the muscles in my back. I mean, like it's a production. Let's stop. But
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you.
Nancy, thank you so much. And thanks, Petra, for doing that exercise. It brings
Thank
it
you.
to life. That's, there's so much Enneagram theory, and we can start with a word like isolated or alienated or lost or bad, and take words from the Enneagram, and then out of our engagement with the system, work with what that brings up for us, and then bring these modalities and processes to see what is that? What is it like inside? What is it like to be in your skin as you move from, say in my case, lost to at the end of your process, I was feeling like a Maori rugby player. That was really good feeling. So for us
I just
to be,
wanted to say, because you said like, okay, so what would you do next now? Would you encourage the person to do X or Y? And there really isn't an answer to that, because
yeah,
I would never say, okay, and now let's breathe with it, or let's bring in this or that. It's kind of really following what the body is saying, what the nervous system is saying through the body.
yeah,
Because if we can sit back and not have an agenda, just like we were talking about
yeah,
earlier, not having that agenda with a client,
yeah,
then we're creating the safety for the nervous system to show us through all these very
yes,
subtle sensations,
yes,
through the things that are changing, through the things that are not changing. Where do we need to go? And we're allowing it to do the thing that it's meant to be doing. And there's that concept of
yes,
organicity. It will
yes,
do the thing that it needs to do to complete whatever was interrupted, rather than us having an idea of like, oh, well, Nancy now needs to
yes,
stand up and do a handstand in order to,
yeah,
complete her healing.
yeah,
It really is very slow and very subtle, and
yeah,
that way we can go with what's actually happening and what's actually needed.
yeah. Just bringing that awareness to each thing and inquiry, and there's a deep trust in this that the wisdom is there. And I guess this is the Dan Siegel of we streaming awareness. So yeah, it's
We're keeping
lovely.
it small enough so that it can actually be integrated. Because if I now go and I say, oh, we're going to do this process with this thing that you've just discovered, it's quite likely that it's too big for the system to actually take it in. We probably go back into a dysregulation, or into a survival mode, or into a getting it mode, and then
Yes,
it can't be integrated. Whereas if we're going in this very gentle, subtle way, where the nervous system is the one that leads the process and leads the pace, it will only bite off as much as it can integrate. It won't go like,
yeah,
oh,
yes, yes,
and then it's
exactly.
like a peak experience, but it's too much for the system to actually then take and integrate into the ongoing day-to-day experiences.
I'd like to
Yeah,
add
that
one
makes a
thing.
lot of sense.
I'm sitting here realizing I'm soaked. Like I just walked 2 miles.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess my nervous system had a problem.
Your nervous system had a discharge. When we have these temperature changes, when there's sweating, where there's skin changes, coloration, and so on, particularly this thing about the temperature and the sweating, it's usually a sign that there has been a discharge in the system.
Thank you.
Hmm.
Mm. So I find it really helpful to combine the Enneagram knowledge and the insights, which are so refined, as a catalyst for us to explore a particular theme. And then that kind of surfaces something, and then we can go down a line of inquiry where we're not using Enneagram jargon at all. We work with what is evoked, trusting that the Enneagram is accurate, and if we accurately typed, it surfaces things in us that we didn't know. Like the first time I saw that word lost for 7, I was like, oh my God, that's true. I'm entirely lost in this entire cosmos. But with the work, with the grounding, it's not a source of panic to see that word anymore. But these kinds of processes to then deal with, okay, so that is the specific difficulty of 7. How does it feel? Where is it? And then with your process, it holds it, and something else is revealed. So thank you for that. Just kind of wanted to point out the relationship between the Enneagram and the modality. Yeah, Manya.
Yeah, I just wanted to say express gratitude because I haven't said anything, and you guys have just really gone out there, and I really loved the whole thing, and I will say as well that it was very powerful when you had that picture on the PowerPoint, you know, the I don't know what they call it, infographic, with that feeling left out before. So powerful. It's just really, the whole thing is powerful, all of it. But
the specific
and
difficulties that you're talking about.
before this, yes, there's this one, and there's the slide before this one. That you had
this one.
You had
or this one.
Yeah, this one. This one. There was I just really felt, in fact, that was a point that I wanted to talk. Was it this one? Oh, shit. I just saw that sentence. No, there was a circle. There was a circle, and you had us each look for our type. So it might be the following slide.
This or that?
Yeah, no, it was before this. It was definitely before. Ingrid, the thing is that sense, or everyone who's here, that sense of being left out is just so stuck. You know, personally, I've experienced that, and the sense of connectedness is just so liberating or freeing of just connecting with people. I mean, that's my whole thing with coaching, is really the connection. It's just phenomenal, that bridge. To use your word, Nancy, you know, of going from that sense, Nancy, that was beautiful, that bridge. I felt so with you, by the way, with even though you were going into your own space. I really felt that sense of connectedness. So I just want to celebrate that, and I just want to express gratitude, Ingrid, for the presentation, and over all this time that we've had all these sessions. Just
thank you. Thanks. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a special space. I'm super grateful for these spaces. We've got another one on Tuesday night that is about the octaves in the Enneagram. So it's more about the symbol. It's called Octaves, Enneagrams, and Healing Spirals. And I'm doing it with Samantha Taroni and Robert Hutchinson. And we always bring very different perspectives. So we're looking at the circle, the hexad, and the inner triangle, and how we actually grow according to the symbol. And I'm going to try and introduce some process Enneagram theory, but I'm going to make it as simple as possible because it's overwhelmingly complex. So I'm going to try and do the bare minimum and be truthful to it. Because, yeah, it's complex.
I think you guys work your ass.
By the way, I just want to say thank you.
Go ahead. I was just saying thank you. You work your asses off. I really appreciate it.
We love it. We love it. Thank you. And thank you, Enrique, for being here. Did you come via Renata?
Excuse me?
You arrived via Renata. Did you do a training?
I'm trying to get connected again with the Enneagram community. I was kind of disconnected because I was in a lot of mess.
Where are you? Where are you based?
I'm living in Monterrey, Mexico, and I can kind of around here because the Enneagram that some people try to practice here is kind of a light version of the Enneagram that I don't like to work with. So I try to connect with the relational and the I forgot the word, this kind of profound and very meaningful way of teachings that I don't know if you know Deborah Putin.
Yes, I do.
A lot. She has been my teacher for a long time.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, and I
Oh,
love her a lot.
she's a very, very, very special
Yeah.
woman. I also love her a lot.
Yeah,
You must
yeah, she's
come to
great.
Egypt. She always comes to the Egypt conference.
Yeah, yesterday I was with her and a lot of people from the Middle East, and it was wonderful. It was another blowing mind experience to be there. They were through Zoom, obviously,
Very cool. Very,
but
very
it
cool.
was great. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, welcome to our little community. We do different things every month, and next month we're doing one on the Enneagram and social justice.
Great.
Because we generally, Enneagram people are working, it's a very Western individualist self-actualization type of model or community, and quite apolitical. And I really want to bring that into question. I don't think the Enneagram is that, and it's an ethics system of right action. So it does challenge us to act in the world, and what does that mean? So I've got one of my anti-apartheid activist friends who spent some time in prison, and another one who was in the labor movement. So we're going to have some people who've very much been part of the anti-apartheid struggle. And if you've got any activist experience, anyone with activist experience is going to be welcome to speak about the Enneagram in the broader world, what that means.
Thank you. I will be delightful to be with you next month.
Great. Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone, in our little circle. And
Thank you. Thank you so much.
see you soon. Go well.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye bye.